Hey everyone, welcome back. For those of you who are new here, my name is Brittany. I'm a health coach and nutritionist, and my channel is all about helping you to create delicious, low FODMAP meals to improve your digestive health. If you're into it, go ahead and subscribe for more low FODMAP recipe tutorials, as well as my tips and tricks for managing a as well as my tips and tricks for living a low FODMAP lifestyle. Okay, so today we're going to be making one of my favorite dishes to meal prep, chicken shawarma. So shawarma it's a heavily marinated, very flavorful chicken dish. Well, actually there's beef shawarma too, but I prefer chicken. This is a Middle Eastern dish. It's served a lot of times as street food. You'll get like a pita pocket with like chicken shawarma in there. So I actually haven't found a gluten-free flatbread that I love yet. So I actually prefer to just prep this and eat it with quinoa, which I will show you today because it's much easier to meal prep and then just warm up and eat throughout the week. You don't have to fuss with warming up your pita bread and all of that. So let me show you how I do that, okay? First, we're going to start by cooking our quinoa because that's going to take the longest. I'm going to do 2 cups of quinoa today, because we have 2 pounds of chicken here, and I feel like that's just right. Add a couple of teaspoons of salt, and add some water, and then I'm gonna pop this in the rice cooker. Okay, next we're going to marinate our chicken. So I have 2 pounds of chicken thighs here that I've trimmed off the excess fat, which I'm going to add 1 heaping tablespoon of mayo. I'm gonna add half a tablespoon of garlic oil, the juice of half a lemon, and our spices. So here I have cumin, turmeric, paprika, a little cayenne, black pepper, and salt. I'll have the exact measurements on my blog post on my website that I'll link below. So now we're just gonna mix this up. I like to use mayo in my marinades as a substitute for yogurt. I think it's a really great low FODMAP substitute because yogurt does have lactose in it, and I am very lactose intolerant. Okay, now that we've got this all coated and everything, we're just gonna let this sit for about 10-20 minutes while we prepare the rest of our stuff. You could let it sit overnight if you wanted to do this the day before, or you could do it a couple of days ahead of time and then have it sit for a couple of days in the fridge. The longer you let it sit, the more flavorful it's gonna be. But I think it's flavorful enough just letting it sit for like 10 minutes. So that's what we're gonna do today. Let's turn on the oven. We're going to turn on the broiler to high. Okay, let that preheat. All right, while we're waiting for that to heat up, we are going to start on our hummus. So I have a can of garbanzo beans here that we are just going to drain and rinse and then pop in our blender. So give me a second. I do prefer to use canned garbanzo beans because they are lower FODMAP. This is because the FODMAPs are water soluble and they leach out of the garbanzo beans into the bean water in the can while they sit. So that's why you want to make sure to give your beans a really good rinse before you use them. Okay, so we're just going to put these in here. So now I'm going to add a tablespoon of garlic oil and a tablespoon of regular olive oil, just because I don't want it to be too garlicky. But if you want it garlicky, go ahead and use all garlic oil. We're also going to be adding a tablespoon of tahini. For any of you that has never used tahini before, it is actually ground like sesame butter, and it's what gives hummus its amazing flavor. We're also going to add half teaspoon of salt, and my secret ingredient, half teaspoon of cumin. Lastly, we're going to add 1/4 cup of water to help it blend. Okay. I'm just going to scrape down the sides to make sure that we have this all thoroughly blended. Okay, our hummus is nice and smooth. I do think it needs a tiny bit more salt. So typically when I write a recipe for you guys, I leave the salt amount just under, just so you can taste it at the end and adjust the salt to your liking. So I'm gonna add about 1/4 teaspoon. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Now let's set that aside and work on our tzatziki. Okay, now for our hummus. We're gonna start by peeling a quarter of this cucumber. The key to great tzatziki is fresh cucumber. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a grater like this and use the smaller holes to grate our cucumber. I love how quick it is. It's so much easier than cheese. Okay, so now with this cucumber, we're gonna take it and we're going to squeeze all the excess juice out. Can you see this? Okay, next we're gonna chop up some dill. I love fresh dill. I suppose you could use dried dill if that's all you had for this recipe, but fresh dill just makes it so much better. Okay, so now we're gonna add about 2 tablespoons of fresh dill to our cucumber. Next, we're going to add 1/3 cup of mayonnaise. We're also going to add 1/4 cup of garlic oil, which is the same as 4 tablespoons. And we're gonna add the juice of 1 lemon. So normally tzatziki has like actual like fresh like pressed garlic in it, and it's so good, but it's just so bad for me. So learning how to make my own tzatziki, game changer. So good. Just gonna add a little pinch of salt. We don't need a ton of salt because our mayonnaise is already salted. I know it seems like making your own tzatziki sauce would be like super involved, but it's really not. It comes together super quick. All right, now that this is done, let's get our chicken in the oven. All right, guys, now we are going to take our marinated chicken thighs and we're going to place them on our baking sheet. I like to use this one, how it has like a little rack in there for the drippings to go down. I think it's the best way to get nice and crispy chicken in the broiler. But if you don't have a pan like this, you can just use a regular baking sheet. It'll be fine. You just want to make sure not to crowd your chicken. Perfect. All right, now let's pop that into the broiler on high for about 10 minutes. We're not going to put it in the very top rack, but the second one from the top. It's been 5 minutes, so we're gonna open up the oven and turn the chicken over. I'm also sauteing some spinach and cherry tomatoes on the stove while that's cooking. Okay, our quinoa is also done. So like I mentioned, while that was cooking in the oven, I sauteed up a bag of spinach and 8 cherry tomatoes. So I did 8 because the low FODMAP serving size is 4 cherry tomatoes, and this is for 4 people, not 2 people, but we are also having FODMAPs in our hummus. So that's why I cut the low FODMAP serving size of 4 cherry tomatoes in half to 2 tomatoes per person. So we are just going to add this into our quinoa. I really like cooking my vegetables and mixing it up with the quinoa for my meal prep because I feel like it's much easier to just warm everything up together rather than having to worry about, oh, there are cold ingredients and hot ingredients. Okay, now let's plate up our chicken shawarma. So the low FODMAP serving size for hummus is 1 tablespoon. I personally know that I am not actually that sensitive to legumes, so I can actually have a fair bit of hummus. But if you are in your low FODMAP reintroduction phase and you're testing the galactico oligosaccharides, also known as GOS, you can use this hummus recipe because that is the only FODMAP that is in this hummus. And you would start with 1 tablespoon of hummus, and then on the 3rd day when you step up your challenge, if you don't have any symptoms, you would go to 2 tablespoons, and then after that, if you're still going, you go up to 1/4 cup. So this is a really great recipe to do that with. And then finish it off with a little bit of our homemade tzatziki. Oh my God, looks so good. If you start to make your own sauces, which is kind of a necessary thing on the low FODMAP diet, I would really recommend picking up some of these. Super handy. All right, guys, here we have it. Low FODMAP chicken shawarma. I also have some feta here. I forgot about it. This is totally optional, but I think it adds a little something extra. If you want to crumble this into your quinoa. I prefer the feta that's in a brick in brine, because the feta that is already broken down, it actually has like anti-caking agents in it, and that's just kind of gross. It's the same thing with pre-shredded cheese, so I always recommend getting your cheese in like block form, or and just crumbling it or grating it yourself. All right, guys, let's give it a little taste. Oh my God, it's so good. The chicken is so nice and juicy. It's full of flavor, especially with that tzatziki on top. Oh my God, you need to make this. You will put it on everything, I promise you. I love the flavor of the cumin from the hummus. So good. So like I mentioned, I like to meal prep this. So I like to have everything warm, easy to heat up in the microwave. But if you were making this at home and you wanted to make shawarma pockets, you know, like a traditional shawarma, you could buy some sort of gluten-free flatbread and chop that up, put that on there with some hummus. And instead of quinoa, you could chop up some cucumbers and tomato and toss that together with garlic oil and lemon juice, a little salt and pepper. Put that on top. That would be so good. All right, guys, there you have it, my quick and easy low FODMAP chicken shawarma meal prep. I really hope that you guys make this and jazz up your lunches a little bit. I just want to give a quick shout out to all of my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much for everything that you do. It really goes a long way to help me keep making these videos for you. So if you guys want to support my channel, there will be a link down below for my Patreon. And I think that's it. So I will see you guys next time.